Turn up, let's go.
What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to 5 darkest cases of real-life vampires throughout history by top 5s. So I'm reacting to top 5s in, I don't know, like a week or two now. Hopefully this will be quite spooky. I don't really know what to expect. I mean, obviously it's like real-life vampires, but I mean, how real-life vampires are they? I don't know. I just gotta find out. But with that being said, the original links in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to top 5s. Without any further ado, let's begin.
Nowadays, when we think of vampires, we envisage a character dressed in a cape, with fangs and a white face, who by day lives in a coffin, and by night feasts on the blood of humans. But that is all fiction, of course.
What do you mean it's all I mean, of course it's fiction, but, you know, most stories and whatnot are based off of something true, right? So what's the real version?
Or is it? Here are 5 cases of real vampires, and the terrifying stories behind them. Hit those lights. Sit back and enjoy. The case of Peter Blagojevich.
That's a terrifying image.
One of the earliest documented instances of vampirism, and is thought to be one of the main influences in the development of the image of vampire we recognize today.
So this is the origin of the vampire, basically? This is the origin story? I'm intrigued.
Peter Blagojevich lived in a village named Kisilova in Serbia. In life, he was just an ordinary peasant. But after his death in 1725, he was blamed for a spate of sudden and unexplained deaths that occurred shortly after.
Wait, he died. And then other people died and they're blaming the dead man for it? What?
Yes, Charmx. Vampires are technically dead, right? They sleep in coffins, remember?
After he was buried. In total, 9 of his villagers died over a period of 8 days, and all 9 of them claimed on their deathbeds that they had been visited by Peter the previous night.
Oh, that's weird.
Furthermore, Peter's wife also claimed that her husband had returned from the dead and come back to their home, demanding food from their son. When he refused, Peter brutally murdered him and drank his blood.
Oh my goodness, freaking, that's weird. What year was this in?
Terrified villagers were so concerned that Peter was responsible that they decided to exhume his body and examine it for signs of vampirism. That, according to local beliefs, included growing hair and nails, and lack of decomposition.
Wouldn't that be anyone who is alive?
When they dug up his body, their superstitions were confirmed. Instead of finding his corpse colourless, stiff and decaying, he appeared lifelike and healthy, with a glowing complexion and freshly grown hair and fingernails, with a mouthful of blood that dribbled from the corners of his lips.
Is this real? Like, is this an actual documented case, or is this just like a story? I don't know. But what do you mean they dug him up? If they dug him up, that means he was still like 6 feet underground. If he's 6 feet underground, how's he getting out? Like, that makes no sense. I have so many questions. And when it comes to nails growing, I heard that it's kind of like a myth when you die that your nails grow, but basically your skin starts shrinking inwards, and if that makes it look like your nails grow outwards, but it's just that your skin's shrinking.
This was enough to convince the villagers that Peter was indeed a vampire, and they proceeded to drive a wooden stake through his heart. This caused an explosion of fresh blood to gush out through his ears and mouth of his corpse. In their horror and desperation, the villagers removed the body and set fire to it. Word spread of the incident, and it contributed to the vampire craze of the 18th century in other European countries.
That was crazy. Is that actually real, or is that just like a fable? Man. Wouldn't you have liked to live? I mean, you know, hundreds of years ago, there's a lot of bad things, but some of the cooler things, like, you know, vampires and that, and werewolves, those would still be around. So, yeah, that would be interesting to live in those times, but probably not the best, though.
The Atlas Vampire. On May the 4th, 1932, Stockholm police discovered the body of 32-year-old prostitute Lily Lindström.
1932, is that what they said?
In her apartment in the Atlas area of the city, now known as the Vasastan. Lily died from blunt force trauma to the head, but what was disturbing was that she had bite marks on her neck and other parts of her body, and a blood-stained gravy ladle was found near to her body. They concluded that the ladle had been used to catch and drink her blood.
Could just be a crazy person, right? I think the first story was definitely like the most convincing. I don't know if it's real though, but this one could just be a crazy person.
When the Swedish newspapers got a hold of the grim story, they headlined it with the vampire reference. As a result, the perpetrator became known as the Atlas Vampire. To this day, the case remains unsolved.
Probably just a crazy person. I mean, the world has a lot of them.
Fritz Hamann. Fritz Hamann is one of the most famous vampire killers of all time.
Vampire killer. Oh, so this guy went after them.
And between 1918 and 1924, he killed at least 24 boys and
1918 and 1924. So this is like, you know, this is more modern.
young men in Hanover, Germany. His nicknames included the Vampire of Hanover, the Butcher of Hanover, and the Wolfman.
Wait, he was a vampire? Or he went after the vampires? Because from the way you said it, it sounded like he went after them, but it sounds like, now that it sounds like he's the vampire.
Hamann's life of crime started at a young age, and when he was just 16, he was arrested for molesting younger boys.
Oh.
He was evaluated and certified as being incurably deranged, and was ordered to be detained in a mental institution indefinitely. But after just 7 months, he escaped and fled to Zurich, Switzerland, where he remained for 16 months before he returned to Hanover in April 1899.
Okay, so he's not a vampire killer. Sounds like he's just like a madman, you know? Like he's got a couple screws loose.
Hamann's murder spree started in around 1918, when he began luring boys and young men back to his home with promises of employment. Once there, he would ply them with alcohol before raping and murdering them. He killed by biting into their Adam's apple. In most instances,
Oh my goodness, I couldn't even imagine that. Biting into the Adam's apple? Oh, this is why you don't go outside.
this would cause the victim to die of asphyxiation. Although on several occasions, Hamann would bite completely through their Adam's apple and trachea and drink their blood. He later referred to this as his love bite.
I'm pretty sure love bite is a hickey, isn't it?
It was after the discovery of hundreds of bones in the Leon River that suspicion fell on Hamann, and after searches of his home uncovered many items belonging to the victims, he confessed.
This guy should have been locked up. Why was he just allowed to be in public? Alright, I should probably clarify. I don't mean he should be locked up when there was no case against him, because, you know, they didn't know that it was him, so they can't lock him up. But what I'm saying is that he was deemed mentally unstable earlier on and was sentenced to be in a mental institution for the rest of his life. He should be back at the institution. He should not be allowed in the public. And if he was in an institution, he wouldn't have done these things.
He claimed to have killed between 50 and 70 men. He was sentenced to death by beheading and executed 18 days after his trial.
Yeah, that last one was pretty freaking disturbing, my goodness. And that had nothing to do with vampire. That was just a mentally deranged person, my goodness. I'm surprised he wasn't like locked up and just like kept locked up.
Vampire in Australia. Tracy Wigginton is known as the lesbian vampire killer. She was born in Australia in 1965, and as she grew up, realised she had vampiric tendencies, and from an early age, preferred to drink the blood of animals rather than eat.
Oh boy, we're in for a doozy here.
However, she also had an overriding urge to feast on human blood, and her lover, Lisa Tuschinski, was a willing donor, but this wasn't enough for Wigginton, and she wanted to take it a step further by trying the blood of a man. On the night of October the 20th, 1989,
1989, so this is like the most recent. This is what, like 30 years ago or something?
Wigginton, her lover, and 2 other women, Kim and Tracy, planned to do just that. The unfortunate victim was 47-year-old father of 4, Edward Baldock. The women approached him in their car and coaxed him to get in with the promise of sexual favours. They drove him to a park near the Brisbane River, where Wigginton stabbed him 27 times. Then drank his blood and left his body in the park. It wasn't hard for police to catch Wigginton, as she had left her ATM card in the victim's shoe.
What? This lady did all this horrible stuff to this man, and then left her ATM card in his shoe. So she wanted to be caught?
When police interviewed her, she told them that she felt nothing. She pleaded guilty to the murder, so the case never went to trial. In 1991, the jury convicted Wigginton of murder, and she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 13 years.
She needs a lot more than that.
After 4 unsuccessful parole applications, Wigington was released from prison in 2012.
She's out and roaming. This is a very weird video. It's very friggin' weird and disturbing. My goodness. I'm probably gonna have to censor a bunch too, but... oh my. The first story was like definitely the best story, because I don't know if it's real, but if it is real, that's like the most evidence or whatever to prove of vampires. But the other ones I reacted to, the people seem like they're just crazy, or definitely, you know, not you know, in the head. But the first story is definitely the most intriguing one, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Why did I react to this? Anyway, if you guys like this, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Possibly share with a friend. If you're new, subscribe to the family. Also, make sure you guys go subscribe to Top 5s. And if you can't, go support Top 5s on Patreon. The link will be in the description. I'll see you guys next time. Boop!